Okay, so a very basic thing. It's not a very good idea to attempt to self-rehab. What could happen is that you do the wrong thing and you prolong the pain, discomfort, and the injury. So you're best off staying away from doing self-rehab. So a very common mistake people make is that they expect the injury to all of a sudden go away. That, or they wait too long to see somebody to seek assistance for their injury, or they do both. So let me underline this. Fitness is not the same as rehab. Oftentimes what will happen is that somebody may injure their back. All of a sudden they figure, let's do more back exercises. But in that particular circumstance, they could be doing more damage than good. So realize that you have to know the difference between rehabbing and doing fitness. Okay, so you've had an injury. And what might happen is that you might have decreased range of motion, for example, in the elbow. One of the things that people might do is that they might start strengthening around the elbow. So they might strengthen their biceps, doing bicep curls, doing tricep extensions. But in the process, what's happening is that because they have decreased range of motion and they haven't gotten the full range yet, they will only be strengthening within that short range of motion. So that's something to be aware of. So stretching or moving in ways towards the direction of the mechanism of injury. So an example is that you might bend down, all of a sudden you notice your back give. What I hear many of my patients do is that they do the stretch where they bring their knees to their chest when they're lying on their back, when in fact you may be potentially causing more of an issue, being that you're going towards the direction of the injury in the first place. In fact, a professional will probably tell you to go the opposite direction. You're going more into an extended position as opposed to a flexed position, the knees to chest position. So that's something to be aware of. So stretching areas that are already lengthened and weak. So a good example of this, a primary example of this is when you sit in front of your desk. Say you sit for 8 to 10 hours a day at your workplace and you're rounding your shoulders. The muscles between the shoulder blades become lengthened, overstretched, and overworked and weak. And what people will do often is that they will stretch out that area. So for example, they'll do this stretch to decrease the potential pain, soreness, and tightness in between the shoulder blades. But what they're actually doing is they're actually stretching an already lengthened and weak structure. They actually have to strengthen the area. So the idea of balancing the body or balancing the body parts left and right, that may not pertain to somebody who's injured themselves. So for example, you might injure your right knee. So what you might attempt to do is do the same amount of weight, same amount of sets, same amount of repetitions on both legs. That's typically a no-no in regards to rehab. You're not at that stage yet, you're not at that point. You're at the point where you're slowly strengthening the one side. What you should do is get advice from someone, a professional, to help you in regards to deciding the type of exercises that you need for that particular injury. So the biggest piece of advice, and it seems like it's very common sense, is that get professional help as soon as possible, whether it be a chiropractor, massage therapist, acupuncturist, physiotherapist. Get it checked out as soon as something occurs. Mind you, most people wait maybe a few days or so. You don't want to panic, but at the same time, if you get it looked at quickly, there's a higher chance of you recovering faster as opposed to waiting for prolonged periods, waiting for something to fade when it may not.